So today we will be talking about salivary gland diseases. So mucus extravasation phenomenon. So for the etiology and pathogenesis, the cause of mucus extravasation phenomenon is traumatic severance of a salivary excretory duct resulting in escape of mucus or extravasation into the surrounding connective tissue. For the clinical features, the lower lip is the most common site of extravasation, but the buccal mucosa, anterior ventral surface of the tongue, floor of the mouth, and retromolar region are the ones affected. So, it presents as a relatively painless mass of smooth surface, has a bluish color when mucin is superficially located. So adolescents and children are more commonly affected. For the histopathology, so they are free of mucin insides and an inflammatory response that is followed by connective tissue repair. Neutrophils and macrophages are seen. Granulation tissue forms around the mucin pool. Adjacent salivary gland shows ductual dilation, chronic inflammation, and acinar degeneration. So differential diagnosis, other lesions might be considered when a typical history is absent. So treatment, it consists of surgical excision. Aspiration of fluid content provides no lasting clinical benefit. Removal of associated minor salivary glands along with the pooled mucus necessary to prevent recurrence. So there is no treatment for superficial mucils. So mucus retention cyst or obstructive sialadenitis. So etiology and pathogenesis, mucus retention cysts usually result from obstruction of salivary flow caused by a sialolith. So clinical features, obstructive sialadenitis due to stones are most commonly seen in submandibular glands. So about 20% are seen in parotid and a small percentage in sublingual and minor glands. The adults are most commonly affected. For histopathology, the cyst-like cavity of a mucus retention is lined by normal but compressed ductal epithelium. So the type of lining formed by epithelial cells ranges from pseudostratified to stratified squamous. The cyst-like lumen consists mucin obstructed by sialolith, and the connective tissue around the lesion is minimally inflamed. So differential diagnosis, salivary glands, neoplasms, mucus extravasation phenomenon, and benign connective tissue should be included in a clinical differential diagnosis. Dermoid cyst might also be included for lesions and on the floor of the mouth. So treatment for minor salivary glands, treatment consists of removal of both the mucus retention cyst and the associated gland to avoid post-operative mucus extravasation. So mucociliary sinus retention cyst or pseudocyst are thought to arise from blockage of an antral seromucous glands resulting in a ductal epithelium lined cystic structure filled with mucin. So pseudocysts are inflammatory in origin and result from fluid accumulation within the sinus membrane. So they may be related to allergy reactions. So, clinical features, a great majority of these lesions are symptomatic. On a panoramic and periapical radiographs, retention cysts and pseudocysts of the maxillary sinus are hemispheric, homogeneously opaque, and well delineated. So, histopathology, the pathogenesis of the two forms of antral cyst is reflected in the histopathologic histologic appearance. So, retention cyst is lined by pseudostratified columnar epithelium with occasional intersped mucous cells. So, a differential diagnosis, a clinical differential diagnosis of cyst and pseudocyst arising within the mucosa of the maxillary sinus would include inflammatory polyps, hyperplasia of the sinus lining as a result of odontogenic infection. So, treatment, antral retention cysts and pseudocysts are generally left untreated because they are limited in growth and not destructive. So, most spontaneously rupture or slowly resolve. Therefore, only periodic observation is required. So, necrotizing sialometaplasia is the initiating event of necrotizing sialometaplasia is believed to be salivary gland ischemia precipitated by local trauma, surgical manipulation, or local anesthesia. Infraction of the gland follows, and squamous metaplasia of ductal remnant eventually appears. So clinical features: intraorally necrotizing ciliometaplasia is characterized by seemingly spontaneous appearance, most commonly at the junction of the hard and soft palates. So histopathology: submucosa adjacent to an ulcer shows necrosis of salivary glands and squamous metaplasia of salivary duct epithelium. For differential diagnosis, clinically, squamous cell carcinoma and malignant minor salivary gland neoplasms must be ruled out, usually by biopsy. So treatment and prognosis: this condition is a benign, self-limiting process that does not require surgical intervention. Healing takes place over several weeks by secondary intention, patient reassurance, wound irrigation using a bland baking soda and water mouth rinse, and occasional use of analgesics are the only necessary management steps. So yeah, the next is the next is adenomatoid hyperplasia. So it is a non-neoplastic enlargement of the minor salivary glands that are of the hard palate. So clinical features: the palate is the chief site of the involvement of this salivary gland hyperplasia. The clinical presentation is seen as unilateral swelling of the hard and or soft palate. This lesion is asymptomatic, broad-based, and covered with intact mucosa of normal color and quality. So histopathology: lobules of hyperplastic mucous glands extend beyond the submucosa and into the lamina propria. Individual acinar clusters are more numerous and larger than normal. Ducts exhibit a slight increase in normal prominence. Histologic and morphologic features of the acinar ductal elements are within normal limits. So differential diagnosis: salivary neoplasm, lymphoma, and extension of the nasopharyngeal or sinonasal disease are into the oral cavity. So periapical inflammatory disease should be excluded. So treatment subsequent to identification by means of an incisional biopsy, no treatment is necessary given the purely benign nature of this process, so there is no neoplastic potential. That would be all. Thank you.